Oh gosh, how did you get here?
The purple device reappears in February. This is not something Amara planned. She had tucked it into the inner pocket of her travel bag after the orchard, buried beneath a folded scarf and a charger she rarely uses, and had spent the subsequent months doing a very thorough job of not thinking about it, which is to say she thought about it every time she opened that bag and closed the pocket again with the focused efficiency of a woman who has made a decision and is sticking to it. The decision being that Kang Jae-won had already used that particular situation against her once, in an orchard, with infuriating calm, and she did not intend to give him a second round. She finds it on a Sunday morning in February when she is reorganizing her bag at the kitchen table, and Jae-won is in the next room making coffee with the comfortable domestic ease he has developed in her space, moving around her kitchen with the unhurried confidence of a man who knows where everything lives because he put half of it there. The small gold box slides out from behind the scarf and lands on the table, and she stares at it. It is still in its original packaging. She had never opened it at the orchard. She had been holding it when he appeared in the doorway. It had been running. She puts it back in the bag. Then she takes it out again. She is still holding it, turning it over in her hands when he appears in the kitchen doorway with 2 mugs and finds her at the table. His eyes go to her hands. Something happens to his expression. She watches the exact journey of it, the recognition, the memory, the very deliberate effort to look casual, the complete failure of that effort, the deep color that starts at his collar and rises with the specific determination she has come to know as his face when he has been caught being human. He crosses the kitchen, sets the mugs down, and takes the box very calmly from her hands. She asks what he is doing. He says he is putting it somewhere useful. She tells him to put it back in her bag. He looks at her. She looks at him. He places it on the kitchen counter with the precise care of someone marking a location. She tells him absolutely not. They are having coffee, it is 9 in the morning, and that item belongs back in her bag where it has lived quietly for 5 months. He sits down across from her and picks up his mug and says with the maddening composure of a man who knows exactly what he is doing that he is simply having coffee. She tells him the expression on his face is not a coffee face. He says he does not know what she means. She reaches over and points at his neck and tells him his neck is doing the thing. He pulls his collar up. She tells him that makes it worse. He takes a sip of coffee. She takes a sip of coffee. They look at each other across the table in a Sunday morning kitchen with a purple device sitting on the counter between them like a third party, and the tension in the room becomes its own atmospheric event. He stands up. She watches him. He reaches across the counter, picks up the box, and holds it out to her with a completely straight face, asking whether she would like to open it or whether she would prefer he do it for her. He made her savor every moment of the experience. He wasn't a selfish lover. His satisfaction came from her soft moans and the gentle touch of her hands against his skin. When they were finally done, the coffee beside them had long gone cold. They looked at each other with shy smiles, warmth lingering quietly between them. The proposal happens in April. She does not expect it, which is impressive given that she has spent the better part of 5 months living alongside a man who plans things with the long horizon patience of someone who has been thinking about a specific outcome for a decade. She should have been watching more carefully. She was not watching carefully because he had very successfully distracted her with soup and rain and Sunday mornings in her kitchen. They are at the orchard. He brought her back for the spring, ostensibly to help Mireille with the early season maintenance, actually for reasons she does not fully understand until they are standing between the apple trees in the cool April evening, the blossoms just beginning to open on the branches above them, the light the soft gray pink of early spring dusk. He stops walking. She stops beside him. He is not looking at the trees. He is looking at her with the expression she has cataloged but still cannot fully survive, the open one, the one that belongs only to her. He says her name. She says yes. He says she did not let him finish. She says she knows what he was going to say. He says he has had it prepared for 3 months. She says she knows that too. He looks at her with the specific anguish of a man whose carefully arranged moment has been dismantled by the person he arranged it for. She takes his face in both hands, the way she always does, and tells him she would very much like to hear it anyway. He tells her everything. He tells it quietly, between the apple trees, in language she suspects he rewrote 100 times, because it still lands with the weight of something true and unrehearsed. He tells her about the fence between their childhood houses, about the way she used to tie his shoes and call him hopeless, about a snowstorm and a pavement and a phone screen and 9 years of a particular kind of empty, about an orchard in summer and a gate and a wrist and a door he should have walked through years before he finally did. He tells her he does not want another day where the answer to where she is does not also answer where home is. He produces the ring. She stares at it. She looks at his face. She looks at the ring again. She tells him she has a question first. He waits. She asks very seriously whether the proposal was planned for before or after the apple blossoms' timing, because the timing of the blossoms seems suspicious. He looks at the branches above them. He says the blossom timing was approximate. She says it does not look approximate. He says he may have checked the forecast. She stares at him. He looks back at her with the neck flush and the straight face and the patience that she has learned by now is one of his most devastating qualities, and she takes a breath and says yes and means every single dimension of the word. He puts the ring on her finger. She looks at it. He is watching her face the way he always watches her face, with the focused attention of someone who has been memorizing her expressions for the better part of 30 years and intends to keep going. She looks up. He is right there, close, the apple blossoms catching the last of the spring light above them, and she kisses him first because she can, and because she wants to, and because she has stopped having practical reasons not to. Inside the house, Aunt Mireille screams once with joy so complete it startles the birds out of the near orchard. Uncle Sang-ho shakes his head and smiles at the ceiling. Jun-so, who was waiting by the kitchen window with his phone, has already taken 3 photographs and is composing a caption with the energy of a man who has been anticipating this moment for considerably longer than anyone asked him to. The wedding is in August. Not a large one, because neither of them wanted large, but full in every way that matters, with both families present and the kind of warmth that fills a room so completely that strangers walking past the venue on the street outside stop and look through the windows without knowing why. Amara wears something that makes Jae-won stop moving entirely when she appears at the end of the aisle, which she did not entirely calculate, but absolutely intended. And the expression on his face is one that Jun-so's camera catches and that will hang on a wall somewhere for the rest of their lives. He does not look away from her once while she walks towards him. She has learned by now that he does not do things by half, and that his version of attention is the kind that makes the rest of the room fall away. But standing at the end of an aisle with every person they love watching and finding only his eyes on her face, steady and certain and completely unguarded, does something to her chest that she suspects it will always do. They wrote their own vows. She finds this out when he starts speaking and realizes it is not a version of anything she has heard before. He says, "I have been practicing how to say this for most of my life, so the fact that I cannot find the right words right now is specifically your fault." There is a quiet ripple of laughter through the room. He looks at her and continues without breaking. He says he could list the things he loves about her, and he intends to do that every day for the rest of their lives. But what he wants to say here, now, in front of every person who matters, is this. He saw her at a gate with an enormous suitcase and knew. He stood in an orchard in the summer heat and knew. He sat in a snow-covered city at 19 and waited too long and lost something that took a decade to get back, and he will not make that mistake a third time. He says he called him hopeless once and tied his shoes, and he spent 30 years proving him wrong, and he intends to spend the rest of his life giving her reasons to take it back. He says he loves her with the specific, unglamorous, irreversible completeness of a person who looked at someone and understood at a cellular level that everything else was logistics. He pauses.
Then, in a lower voice that only she can hear, he adds that he also intends to be thoroughly inignorable every single day, so she does not get any ideas about pretending they are barely acquainted again.
She presses her lips together. Her eyes are bright. She tells him in a whisper that he is terrible. He says he knows. She speaks. She says, "You tied your own shoes the day we went to the orchard. A perfect knot. You stood up and walked away, and I thought about it for 3 days, and I did not tell you. Because I was a coward, and I have been a coward about you specifically since we were children sharing a fence, and I am done with that now." She says she spent 9 years telling people they were just neighbors, and she said it so many times she almost believed it, and the problem was that she never quite did. She says she used to flip her phone face down when his name came up. She says she would like those 9 years back, but since that is not available, she will take every year that follows and use them better. She says she loves him in all the versions she knows, the gap-toothed boy and the composed man, and the one who appears at her door soaking wet, and the one who books her maintenance at midnight, and the one who sits in a cold apartment reading the back of a book he is never going to finish. She says she loved him when she did not know she loved him, and she will love him when they are both old and insufferable, and probably arguing about apple varieties. She says she has one more thing. She reaches into the small fold of her bouquet and produces, to the absolute bewilderment of everyone in the room except Kang Jae-won, a small gold packet, which she holds up between 2 fingers with an expression of complete composure. She says, "I believe this question was left open." The room does not know what to make of this. Junso, who knows exactly what to make of this, turns a spectacular shade of red and drops his phone. Aunt Wee-rae blinks. Uncle Sang-ho tilts his head. Jae-won stares at her for 1 full second, and then his face does the thing, the red and the jaw and the struggle for composure that she has spent a year cataloging and could draw from memory. And then he laughs, real and unguarded, the loose, open laugh that is her favorite of all his faces. And the room laughs with him without knowing why. And she is grinning in her wedding dress, holding a gold packet in front of every person she loves, and she has never in her life felt more like herself. The officiant, who has performed many ceremonies, says quietly that he will simply continue. She is at the reception bar getting water when the hand lands on her arm. She turns. The woman is beautiful in a structured way, the kind of deliberate beauty that takes effort and wears the effort like armor. Her smile is social, the kind assembled for rooms, and her eyes are doing something else entirely. Amara has seen this before. She has seen it at the gallery in Hanam-dong. She has a very specific internal classification system for smiles that use all the correct muscles and none of the warmth. The woman introduces herself. Her name is Hana. She says she knows Jae-won from before, from a world Amara has been briefed on and made her peace with. She says Amara is very beautiful, which is true and also beside the point. She says Jae-won is lucky, which is the 3rd time someone has said that to Amara today, and which lands differently from this particular speaker. Then she says she needs to speak to Jae-won privately for a moment, just briefly. She says old friends should have a chance to say goodbye properly. Amara looks at her. She keeps her face completely neutral. She says, of course, and watches Hana cross the room toward her husband with the practiced movement of someone who has decided the outcome of an evening in advance. She turns back to the bar. She gets her water. She breathes. She reminds herself who she married and what he said today, and the 9 years and the snow and the orchard and the rain, and she is calm. She is fine. She trusts him completely. She is the wife, and this is her wedding, and she is... Jae-won appears at her elbow in under 4 minutes. She turns. He is slightly flushed, jaw doing the particular set of a man who has removed himself from a situation with speed and determination. He takes her glass of water and drinks half of it. She watches him. He places the glass back down and turns to her and says with the specific expression of a man who needs her to understand something immediately that he would like to go somewhere with her right now. She asks if everything is all right. He says everything is very much not all right, and it would become significantly more all right if she were in his arms rather than standing 2 feet away and looking at him like she wants to make him explain himself. She sets the glass down slowly and asks what exactly Hana said and did. He looks at the ceiling briefly. He says Hana expressed feelings he did not know she had and then moved in a direction he did not invite, and he moved in the opposite direction, which was this direction, because this is the only direction he has been interested in moving for a very long time, and could she please let him hold her, because the last 4 minutes were a specific kind of uncomfortable he is not interested in discussing at length. Amara looks at him. He looks back at her, flushed and composed and slightly wrecked in the particular way that is only ever her doing, and she steps forward and puts her arms around him right there at the bar of their wedding reception, and he folds around her immediately, his whole frame settling, the particular exhale of a man arriving exactly where he intended to be. She says into her shoulder that she is very slightly smug right now. He says into her hair that she has earned it. She says Hana has excellent taste. He says she is enjoying this too much. She says she is enjoying it exactly the right amount. He pulls back just enough to look at her and says very quietly that she is the only person in any room he has ever been in who makes every other person in the room irrelevant, and he would like that to be on the record. She tilts her face up. He kisses her, at their own reception, in front of the bar and the guests and the entire assembled evidence of their lives, with the particular focused attention he brings to everything that matters to him, which is her, always, specifically her. And Jun-se takes a photograph from across the room that he will send to the family chat before the night is over, and that will make Aunt Mireille cry in the best possible way. Hana leaves early. Nobody comments on this. The wedding night suite is the kind of room that exists specifically for this occasion, high up in a hotel above the lit city, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over a soul that has no idea and no interest in what is happening inside. Amara stands at the window in the quiet after the night, still in her dress, the city below her a geography she has mapped entirely differently since the spring. Since the orchard, if she is being honest, which she has decided to be always about everything that involves Kang Jae-won. She hears him behind her. He comes to stand at the window beside her, and they look at the city together in silence. He is still in his dress shirt, jacket long since removed, and the stillness between them is the comfortable kind, the kind that does not need to be filled. Then he says her name. She turns. He is holding the purple device. She stares at it. He is holding it with the composed expression of a man who tracked down her bag at some point during the evening, located an item, and is now presenting it with the unhurried confidence of someone's question has been technically waiting since February. She tells him he is unbelievable. He says he planned ahead. She asks how long he has been planning this specific moment. He says, with complete sincerity, since the orchard. She processes this. She looks at the item in his hand. She looks at his face, the composed version with the red at the collar that she has learned is the real version, the open one underneath, the one that belongs to her. She thinks about a doorway in the countryside and a girl frozen in someone else's room and a man who said her name like something he had been keeping. She thinks about 9 years and a fence and a gap-toothed boy who could not tie his shoes. She thinks about February on a Sunday morning in her kitchen and the item on the counter and the coffee going cold. She takes it from his hands. She says, "Your question has been open long enough." The night moved slowly, both of them nervous that even the smallest sound might carry through the quiet room. The device hummed softly between them, heightening every touch and every breath they shared. Just as she reached a trembling peak, he set the device aside and pulled her closer, introducing himself to her in a way that felt far more intimate than words alone. She whispered his name against his ear, her voice breaking into a soft cry as she bit down playfully. He shivered at every renewed touch, overwhelmed by the feeling of her in his arms, wishing the moment could stretch on forever. He said, "You are mine. I want you now and always." "You are so sweet," she smiled at every word he said and held him by his neck.
The Seoul night is warm and unhurried, and the city below them has no idea and no interest, and the summer continues to belong to them. And the device that started an entire war is finally thoroughly put to its intended use, with Kang Jae-won paying very close attention to every instruction and every sound and every version of her name the night requires of him, which is to say, many versions, across a very significant portion of the hours between midnight and morning. Afterwards, wrapped in the hotel's warm quiet with the city going soft and golden
Outside the window, she lies against him in the dark and realizes her shoulders have not been this loose since before she can remember. She tells him this. He says he will make sure they stay that way. She says that is an ambitious promise. He says he has always had ambitious plans where she is concerned. She laughs quietly. He presses his mouth to her temple. She closes her eyes. Outside, Seoul carries on being Seoul. Inside, everything is very still and very right, and the story that began with a gate and a wrist and a shriek about a spider has arrived somewhere warm enough to live in permanently. She falls asleep first. He lies awake a while longer, her head on his chest, the room quiet around them, and feels the particular weight of a man who has arrived at the thing he waited a decade for and found it worth every year of the wait. The twins are born in the following October, a fact that surprises the hospital staff only in terms of timing, since Amara maintained for the entirety of her pregnancy that she was having one child and that the ultrasound technician needed to look more carefully, a position she held with increasing desperation against all medical evidence until the second small person appeared and made the point conclusively. Jae-won, who was present and who maintained his composure throughout with the focus of a man channeling everything he has into being exactly where he needs to be, says nothing when she looks at him across the delivery room and then down at the two people they have apparently made together. He simply looks back at her with the expression that will never stop undoing her, wide open and completely unguarded, and she thinks she sees the gap-toothed boy in it somewhere, the one who could never get his shoelaces right, and she is so overwhelmed by love and exhaustion and the specific madness of the last several hours that she laughs until she cries, and he comes to her immediately, hand in her hair, telling her she was extraordinary. She tells him, between the crying and the laughing, that she told him one. He says she was very convincing. She says she should have pushed back harder. He says he was not going to argue with her during a pregnancy. She says that was probably wise. He says it was self-preservation. A boy and a girl. They named the boy Seo-jun after a brief and passionate debate in which Amara held firm on 3 names and Jae-won said nothing for 10 minutes and then said Seo-jun very quietly, and something in it settled immediately in her chest in the way that things do when they are right. The girl's name comes faster and sits between them without argument the moment it arrives, because some names simply present themselves and require no negotiation. They bring them home in November. Jae-won carries both car seats with the precise focus of a man for whom careful is a way of life, and Amara walks beside him into the building they now share, the apartment that expanded 6 months ago to accommodate the future they were building toward. And she looks at her husband navigating the elevator with 2 sleeping infants and the specific expression of someone doing the most important thing they have ever done, and she thinks, there was the orchard, and then there was this, and everything in between was the road. The sleep deprivation is considerable. This is not something the parenting books failed to mention. It is something they mentioned extensively, with statistics and charts and well-meaning advice that turns out to bear approximately no relationship to the actual experience of being awake at 4 a.m. for the 6th consecutive night, watching a small person you made with your entire body refuse to sleep for reasons that remain entirely private to them.
Jaewon handles the 4 o'clock shifts with the quiet efficiency of someone who has previously operated in conditions requiring alert function at all hours. He gets up without being asked, moves through the dark apartment with the practiced quiet that she used to find slightly alarming and now finds deeply comforting, and returns to bed smelling of warm milk and something unidentifiably soft. And she pretends to be asleep on many of these occasions because there is something about watching him with their children that is too large to witness head-on and must be absorbed sideways.
She tells him this once, in the gray pre-dawn of a Thursday. He is quiet for a moment. Then he says he spent 9 years not having this, any of it. Her, the apartment, the noise and the weight and the warm and the belonging. He says every 4 o'clock is just one more thing that existed in a future he was not sure he was going to get, and now he has it, and the math is extremely clear to him. She presses her face against his shoulder. He puts his arm around her. Outside, the city is just beginning to show its first pale edges of morning. Inside, somewhere down the hall, Sejun makes a small sound that resolves into continued sleep. The girl stays quiet. The apartment breathes. She says, "I used to flip my phone face down when your name came up." He says, "I know." She says, "I will never do that again." He says, "I know that too." She says, "You were always going to be the answer. I was just asking the wrong questions." He is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, very low and very certain, that she was asking exactly the right questions. She just needed the orchard to find them. She tilts her face up in the dark. He finds her immediately, the way he always finds her, the way she has come to understand he will always find her. And they are quiet together in the early morning, her and the man who drove to an orchard and waited, the man who sat in the snow and waited, the man who walked across the city in the rain to say everything at once, the man who can tie a perfect knot and who still, occasionally, when he thinks she is not watching, ties it twice. She is always watching. She was always watching. Jun So posts the orchard photographs to his page the following spring, scroll after scroll of them, all the way back to the beginning, the summer orchard and the harvest orchard and the proposal blossoms and the wedding and the babies and their first autumn, cheeks round, eyes wide, wrapped in the specific warmth of people who have been loved before they had language for it. The last photograph in the set is one she has not seen before. It is from the wedding, taken from a distance, and in it she is walking toward the end of the aisle, and Jaewon is standing at the other end with his hands at his sides and his face completely unguarded and open in the way it only ever is for her. You can see from Jun So's careful angle the exact moment he sees her, the exact shift of it in his expression, something arriving, finally, after a very long journey. She sends it to Jaewon without a caption. He sends back a single message. He says, "I have been looking at you since we were children, standing at a fence, and I plan to keep looking until I run out of time." She looks at her phone in the morning light of their apartment, their improbable and chosen and thoroughly lived-in apartment, with its small drawer of his things that became a drawer, that became a wardrobe, that became a shared space, that became a home. And she hears, somewhere down the hall, the particular conversational sound of Sejun narrating something important to his sister, and she hears her husband's voice joining it, low and patient. And she thinks about a purple device in a tissue-wrapped box, an orchard in the summer, and a gate, and a wrist, and a shriek about a spider that she committed to as her official story and intends to take to her grave. She thinks about a woman who needed rest more than she knew she needed everything else. She thinks the countryside, clean air, apple trees, silence. She thinks it was a good vacation. She closes the photo, she gets up, she goes to find her family. The apples are very good this year too. They always are. This is the end of Amara and Jaewon's story. Every spider, every orchard, every closed door, every gold packet, every drop of water from a jaw in the summer heat, every soaked coat in a November hallway, every name said in the dark. It was all heading here. Thank you for coming with them all the way to the end. Drop a comment with the moment that got you. You know where the subscribe button is.